And it is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Hey, how you doing? I'm Warren. Hope you're having a great week so far. Mine could be better. I've got a cold. Nothing too serious. A cold. Just a cold, where you're congested and, runny nose and sneezing and all that, watery eyes, all this stupid bullshit that no one ever fucking needs. That's what I got. So I hope I don't come across as too low energy today. I hope not. Maybe as I get talking, it's like, maybe I'll get all fired up and stuff, but, you'll have to forgive me I don't even know how my voice sounds. I'm going to hear when it's time to just put all of this together. I'm going to be like, oh, Jesus Christ, you really shouldn't have done this today. You sound like shit. I don't know how things are. Hopefully I'll be able to pull through it. Spoiler alert, I'll be able to pull through it. But nevertheless, we are here to talk about the edition of AEW Dynamite that happened on October 15, 2025 from the Cable Dahmer Arena in Independence, Missouri. Of course, I am recording this on the 16th, so we are on the day after that particular edition of Dynamite. 2,239 tickets were distributed for the program last night. The last time Dynamite was in this building was 2 years ago on October 10. They did 3,621 tickets. So that's quite the YOY, the year over year, right? The YOY. So not a great number, but I really don't want to spend too much time on that. I really do want to get to the show. A show that I thought, well, of course, this was the go-home show for WrestleDream, and a show that I thought overall was very low effort. And I think that's the theme here. I think a lot of stuff just happened on this show that wasn't anything really special, wasn't anything that felt dynamic and hot. It was just like, things happening, just being put together. And look, I don't know what to tell you. There wasn't much to this, to last night's Dynamite. I didn't hate it. I don't think it was a bad show. I don't think it was a good show either. I thought it was very, very low effort, very middling. There's a couple of things that stand out, but, especially for a 3-hour show, man, woof. And you know what? Here's the thing. I had a couple of days ago on Monday, I believe, when AEW released the full card, I went on Blue Sky and I quote posted the card with a simple caption that read "woof," and I didn't get a lot of traction on that. I think the AEW fans on Blue Sky, with whom I get frequent solid engagement with, a lot of them were not hitting the little like button. They weren't showing any appreciation for my comment. In fact, a couple of people responded and said, "Oh, well, this match is going to be good. Actually, I'm looking forward to it." No. I'm like, okay, this is an unpopular opinion that I have. All right, that's fine. I can deal with having opinions that go against the grain. It's not that big a deal. But, it turns when I watch the show and I think back at that post, I'm like, look, once again, Warren Hayes was right. And the reason why I was right, again, this time, is because, the woof was to signify that show had no juice, that the Dynamite just didn't have any juice, and in execution, it ended up not having any juice. I think that there's two things that we have to take away from this very, very stale edition of Dynamite. First of all, Dynamite is not ready to go to 3 hours. In fact, it should never go to 3 hours. I don't think there's a wrestling fan on earth who accepted who accepted the transition, with Raw and Nitro going to 3 hours back in the day. I don't think anyone was excited about that. I don't think anyone was like excited to be like, yes, I'm going to sit down and watch 3 hours of wrestling. No, I don't think anyone was into that. And I feel like the more that we see these 3 hour dynamites, these 2.5 hour dynamites, but last week's dynamite I really liked. But I feel like the longer the dynamites get, the rougher they become to watch. So I think if anything, a show like last night continues to underscore that we don't need 3 hours of dynamite per week. I don't think we do. The second thing is, I talked about this a while, maybe a month or so ago, maybe a little over, maybe a couple of months at this point. I don't know what is time anyway. I had talked about the injuries to the big stars, right? We spoke about this when Hangman won the championship, and then Ospreay had to take some time off, and Swerve had to take some time off. Then MJF, was off doing whatever the fuck he's doing now. He's not on his honeymoon because Alicia Toot was back working last night, right? So they're not going around having young married couple sex. They're off working, so who knows what Max is doing right now. And I was saying to myself, and I said not just to myself, to you all. I spoke it out loud on on the review here and on the MrWarrenHayes show. I brought to the attention that there's a lot that's going to have to fall on Hangman's shoulders because the top guys aren't going to be there. And I was talking about Kenny Omega being very in and out. We're not quite sure, how much time he has left. It feels like he's a bit of a part-timer. That was the deal, right? And last night, absolutely, not only last night, but the WrestleDream show, absolutely are a proof, are proof positive, I should say, that AEW needs its top guys back. That the guys that really do bring in the top superstars, the top charismatic superstars, top performers, they're not there, and I think it's leaving an imprint on the show right now. I think last night was absolutely proof of that. And even though they did have Kenny Omega, they clearly don't know what they're doing with Kenny, right? And WrestleDream, as far as the matches go, I think there's the potential for a lot of really good matches on the card. Don't get me wrong. I think this always is the situation with AEW shows. I think WrestleDream is, their coldest pay-per-view that they've thrown together in a long time. This is one that could have absolutely benefited from a Will Ospreay match, from a Swerve Strickland match. It adds to my theories that Kyle Fletcher just might be losing the title this weekend, because I think they need to elevate a guy, need to elevate him quickly to throw into the mix, especially with, the two other guys not around. But then again, I look at Kenny Omega, who clearly is directionless since the whole Andrade thing happened, right? Allegedly Andrade, according to reports, shouldn't have a 90-day non-compete clause, but it would appear that AEW received a cease and desist from WWE saying that Andrade is in breach of contract and that he should not appear on television. So that should explain his absence from the past 2 weeks and why Kenny doesn't have something to do on the show, because we probably had Andrade versus Kenny Omega earmarked, but it's not going to happen now. Did we find a substitute for Kenny? Well, I haven't seen it. And, are they going to rush him into to another quick program. It's kind of too late now. There's no more time to build unless unless Tony Khan just throws a match together on Friday, and announces it on social media. There's not much to do here. So I think that a show like last night really does emphasize that there is a problem at the top where we don't have enough top guys, and we don't have enough top guys even for Hangman to fight, right? Because I think the matches people would have wanted to see in this Hangman reign is is a return to fighting Swerve Strickland, because that's a generational feud right there that was extremely well done, and people are into that. I think people would have loved to see Hangman and Will Ospreay. I know I would. I even feel like this is whatever's happening now is to the detriment of Hangman's reign. So I think there's a lot of issues, obviously, that are making AEW come across as a little cold, I guess, a little. And TV like last night isn't exactly the most compelling stuff, right? And I don't even think the TV they did last night was all that good to lead into WrestleDream. I don't even think it was. I don't even think it was all that interesting. Maybe for 2 matches. But I feel like Hangman and Joe last night did nothing. In fact, it kind of cooled it off from a position where, over the past couple of weeks, this program has been super duper hot. I was here on this podcast saying for the past 2 weeks, this shit rules. I loved how this feud started. I thought it was brilliant, that it was so simple and perfect. And I was like, we need more of this. And last week's in-ring promo I thought was tremendous. And I was like, come on, let's give us more. And then on Dynamite last night, they just look at each other and it's like, see you Saturday. And I'm like, this kind of stinks. It's been so good over the past couple of weeks. It's been so good. Now I'm like, well, I'm not quite into it anymore. And I thought they were doing a particularly good job at it to make it really, really interesting because, Joe is, he's not top guy material in 2025. He's not going to beat Hangman Adam Page. That's the thing is I think the outcome here is pretty clear. So if the outcome is clear, then we need the road to that destination to be exciting, right? We need to go full throttle on it. And we were until last night where we decided to, take an off ramp, to, bumfuck wherever and stop at a very disappointing gas station where you end up, walking out with a vending machine ham sandwich. That's kind of how I felt after the events of last night. Look, of course, I still think it'll be a pretty good match, but they were doing a really good job, and I kind of feel like everything else is just flat. This is and just low effort overall. Let's just break it down. Let's just dive right in at this point. I think my opening argument is done here, Your Honor. Let's get into the details. So they start the show showing Kota Ibushi's injury that happened on Collision this week. Of course, I think by now everyone has heard the news. Well, last week, I should say. I think by now we all heard the news that Kota Ibushi's leg is, as they say, I believe the medical term is that it's fucked. That he will not be wrestling for at least 2 years at this point, which is completely crazy, which led to Kenny Omega forming an alliance with the Jurassic Express, or as I like to call them, Dino 210, even though there is tension between Omega and Jack Perry for things that happened between them in the past. Renee Paquette then is backstage, and she's interviewing Tony Storm and Chris Statlander. I like this backstage promo. I feel like I feel like RJ City wrote all these lines for everyone. I thought Statlander's lines were very RJ coded. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? It's fine. I think in the context here, it's fine. You know, she just spoke using terms and things that she usually doesn't. So I thought that was interesting. And, the relationship that they have right now and that they've been really leaning on is, I nailed it. It came to me last night when they're like standing there, they're sitting there and they're talking at each other and they start removing articles of clothing. I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, like, they're removing articles of clothing, they're talking to each other, and then eventually, like, Tony Storm gets up and says, all right, are we done talking? Let's go do this. I'm like, okay, so this is really like sexual tension. This is what they're playing off of. They're playing off of sexual tension of two people who are playing a game with each other, and eventually one of them just goes, all right, you want to come back to my place and fuck? Let's do it, okay? And yeah, okay, let's do it. Yeah, that has that kind of raw energy, because then they hit the ring and they start wailing on each other. So that's essentially that's the vibe that I was getting here. I think I finally nailed it. The energy that they're conveying. It's just two people who have just like this natural sexual chemistry with each other. And, they're trying to be coy about it. They're trying, they're talking, they're teasing each other. And then suddenly one of them goes, all right, are we done talking? Yeah. Are we going to go fuck? Yes. There you go. So they couldn't wait for Saturday anymore. They couldn't wait for they couldn't wait for the weekend. They had to do this on a Wednesday night. They know they're going to have a terrible day at work the next day because they stay up all night having sex. They stay up till like 4 a.m. They just can't stop. So they would have preferred to wait till Saturday. You see what I mean? Because then you can take all your Sunday nice and easy. You can wake up, you can have breakfast, you can go back and have a nap, you can have some more sex if you want. One of those situations where it's like Saturday would be better because we have no obligations on Sunday. Wednesday evening, well, look, I can't take it anymore, but I know that tomorrow on Thursday, it's gonna be a shit day at the job. I'm gonna have bags under my eyes, whatever. It's just gonna be awful. But I just can't wait anymore. You see, that's what they were going for. Anyway, I liked it. I thought it's some good energy, regardless between these two. I'm looking forward to the match. Then we have the Jungle Man, Jack Perry, who's he's playing with knives, and he basically says that he gave everything to the Young Bucks, but they never had his back, and that's why he went back to hanging out with Luchasaurus, who is there and growls at the camera. All right. This leads us to the Gates of Agony, the GOA, defeating the Hurt Syndicate. Physical, big, power, heavy opener. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought Bishop Khan was a little sloppy. I thought he was a little, I don't know. I thought he was a little sloppy in this match, especially towards the end. MVP stiffs him with the cane at the back of the head. And that was stiff, brother. So I'm like, oh, did something happen? I don't know. I got a weird vibe off the match towards the end, but it was good. It was pretty good overall. And Bishop Khan wins. He lands a belly-to-belly suplex on Benjamin to get the pin after a whole bunch of distractions and stuff. And it is what it is. And we're doing all of this again, as you may recall, at WrestleDream this weekend. And this feud has got to stop, or at least give it some room to breathe for a while. Oh, and I'm sure a lot of you were happy to learn that this was the first pinfall loss of the Hurt Syndicate since joining AEW. I'm sure you were thrilled to learn that. Now Mox and Darby have their segment in the incarceration environment that they were in. Okay. So technically speaking, this is something that I should be burying right now. This is something I should be burying because it makes no sense. It makes no sense. I'm sitting there wondering, okay, did Darby get arrested? Or is Mox arrested? Where are they? Why are they doing this in this type of environment? What local law enforcement facility allowed these two to cut a promo on each other with across the glass with one guy hanging out with the inmates, and I just did not understand how this was working. But despite the fact that and the invisible cameras, right? It was very very TV show, right? It was very HBO-ish, where you had the different camera angles to get the different expressions. You had the top camera that was shooting down at Darby, and I was like, ugh. So I'm like, I'm there, and I'm like, God, this should fucking annoy me. Why is it not annoying me more than it is? Well, that's because the promo was tremendous, because Jon Moxley is a fucking ace. That's why. Because he was so good here in this role. Like, it literally was a Batman Joker type of situation. And Mox was he was intense. He was precise. He hasn't been this solid in such a long time. And now he's getting into this situation and into this match with Darby, which will be over the top, which will be ridiculous. I think that's the expectation at this point. But he is giving it some gravity, some grittiness to it that it really does need. Because you will recall last week, I did not like the Molotov cocktail stuff. I thought it went too far. I thought last week was a really bad misstep in the build to this match. Darby coming out with the flamethrower a couple of years ago, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of years ago too, but a couple of weeks ago, I was like, okay, but I get it. It's Darby. He's nuts. Then Darby coming with his pepper spray and his taser and then the fucking Molotov cocktail. I was like, this is all too goofy. Now, like, again, I understood what they were doing. The idea was that these people will have no reservations into what they are going to do to each other, right? That's the idea. And they continued that in this promo here, in this incarcerated environment. They did the exact same thing, but I thought was so much more successful because it felt real. It didn't feel dopey. Despite the fact that Pac suddenly appears behind Darby, walks into the room and beats the piss out of him to the point that Darby's bleeding on the glass, right? Which was awesome. But the problem that I have is that the minute that you decide to start applying logic to it, it instantly falls apart. And then when you realize that, then they have the shot of Mox leaving the room and says bonding one, right? Bonding. So it's a bondsman, room. It's like at the courthouse. It's like for bond. It's to pay bail. It's the post bail. That's what it's for. So it's not even a prison. So I'm like, I see that. I'm like, well, what are they doing here? Why is this happening in this environment? I don't understand how we got here. We have literally had a man on this program commit arson, and we never had a promo from jail, or from that involves the legal system. I'm watching Mox and Darby, and I can't help but think it's like, well, okay, who's the inmate and who's working for the system here in this circumstance? Because none of it makes sense. So you see, like, the minute that you start trying to apply logic to it, it falls apart. But I will 100% give this one a pass, because this was grade A, S tier, John Moxley promo stuff that got to me, that made me excited again for this match. This I Quit match, which will likely be the biggest match. Like, this is the drawing match. That's the one people want to see. So I think they knocked it out of the park when it comes to the hype for it. And we weren't even done, because we have later on, there was another thing. But I think this segment here completely knocked it out of the park. I think it was extremely successful. Even though, even today, I'm still struggling with how did we get to this place? How did we get to this specific environment where one of these guys is waiting for someone to post bail, and then Pac's sneaking up? Like, it doesn't hold together anyway. But like I said, later on in the evening, after the Daniel Garcia, Wheeler Yuta, Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly tag team match, the Death Riders are beating down on O'Reilly and Cassidy, and Darby Allin comes to the ring, and he's still selling the injury that he took in the interview booth, I guess. He's still selling it. Like, he comes out and he staggers and he has trouble holding himself up. And we were told this happened earlier today. And I'm like, you didn't take a nap, Darby. You didn't, sleep it off. You didn't sit down. Like, why are you struggling so hard still if this happened earlier today? Didn't happen like a few minutes ago. But the idea here, and I understand, was to demonstrate that Darby Allin just won't quit. He gets attacked by Claudio. He gets attacked by Pac. He gets double teamed by Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia. And Marina Shafir gets a lick in, all while he's trying to reach the ring to beat Mox, or to go confront Mox at the very least. And at first he's walking, but he's staggering, and at the end he's crawling on his belly, and he's just dragging himself. And he does dragging himself into the ring. So I get what they're doing, this idea that Darby Allin is not going to quit. And that was the gist of what Mox was saying in the interview room. He was telling Darby, look, I know you're not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. So how far is this shit going to go? How far are we ready to take this to have a winner? So it works. And I think one of the reasons why I'm more lenient on the cinema that was the interview segment is because of the angle they did later on. Was like, okay, like it all ties together. It all makes sense. We got to see the guys in the building doing an angle. I thought it was really successful. Okay, like I'm gonna give this a pass because it was well executed, well done by everyone involved, particularly Jonathan Moxley, who is incredible. All right, moving forward, back to the matches. Claudio Castagnoli defeated Roderick Strong. This is one of the matches where I was told on Blue Sky, Claudio and Roderick is going to rule on this card. I'm like, oh, and in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, it depends. It depends on a lot of things. It depends. And I thought this was fine, but nothing to write home about. It's like, all right. Claudio gets the win with the Swiss death. I don't have a problem at all with just like a random match happening on Dynamite. Like, I don't have a problem with it. Just giving Claudio a TV win. after, he's lost a few times. So you get him back in there. You have a nice TV win against Roderick Strong. And you're like, oh, this match is going to rock. And I'm like, is it? And then it doesn't rock. It's not bad. Again, it's not a bad match, but just kind of sort of happened. Then we get the pre-tape of the Don Callis family celebrating Don's birthday on October 13. They are in they're in a back, a private, they're in a private dining room, I guess at Chili's or at, at Fridays. I don't know. Or maybe like some local steakhouse. And Don Callis is there toasting to family and whatnot. But the idea here was to set up an angle where Konosuke Takeshita, who is still in Japan, Konosuke Takeshita sent Don a birthday message, birthday greeting, and Okada was the guy operating the TV, and he pushes the wrong button, so he says, and turns off the TV. And he says, "I'm so sorry," hearkening back to that one thing with the Bucks. That's what happened there. Yup. So still to continue adding fuel to the Okada Takeshita feud, which, by the way, I am adhering to the theory that Takeshita and Okada will be facing each other in the finals of the C2 this year. Kenny Omega and Dino 210 defeat the Don Callis trio of Hechicero, Josh Alexander, and Mark Davis making his return. It's fine. It was a fun match. The audience was into it. We got 60% effort, Kenny, and the Dino 210 guys are super over. And what more do you want from me? Fine little match. Jurassic Express hit a doomsday device. After the match, though, the Young Bucks come in to attack Dino 210. Kenny Omega jumps into the ring sort of to push his buddies away, or his former buddies, I should say. They don't come to blows with Kenny, but Luchasaurus and Perry do go after them. They also chase off the rest of the Don Callis family. So the babyfaces stand tall. Jamie Hayter defeated Sky Blue. Boy, I tell you, that Sky Blue, she got tossed around like it was nobody's business. Jamie Hayter was just throwing her around. It was a glorious sight. You could feel like Hayter was really feeling it, and she's one of the top of the crop in AEW, and Sky Blue is Sky Blue. I think there's still a lot of holes in her game. Hayter wins with the Haterade. I don't have much to say. Look, this is a very passable match. If only made better because Jamie is a well-rounded, top-tier professional wrestler, and she was phenomenal here. Tekla shows up on the Tony Tron, saying that she is chaos and poison and that she's going to be toxic or something to that effect, because they are having a match at WrestleDream. These two are going to have a very, very poor-ass build for this, though. We have to be honest with each other. Like, this should have more buzz than it does, but there really wasn't much here. And again, just like throwing Tekla up on the TV and on the Tonytron and having her cut a promo backstage. I'm like, okay, is this really? That's it. This is it. All right. Mercedes Moné is backstage. She is now 10 belts Moné. She is now calling herself Ultimo Moné, matching Ultimo Dragon's 10 belt record. And she's going to be this Friday in Mexico City. She's going to be at Arena Mexico to defend the CMLL women's title against Persephone. And then she said that she was also going to be at WrestleDream, even though she is not going to be wrestling. I don't think she said it was going to be in a wrestling capacity. I felt like it was more like in a celebratory manner, basically setting up an angle so that someone will show up to challenge her. My money's on Sari, who mysteriously came in to do an ROH shot then went back to Japan, dropped the IWGP World Heavyweight Women's World Championship, and then that's it. Like, from what I understand with Suri, she's, whatever deal she had with Stardom is done, right? Because she wasn't officially signed. She just had she had some working dates. She's freelance. So I think she was done with I think she's done with Stardom. So that frees her up, and I don't see a Suriism show showing up anytime soon. So, if we want to go Mercedes Moné versus Suri, can't say I'm going to be objecting to that one. So we'll see what happens at the pay-per-view. The Ops defeated La Facción Ingobernable. Good little physical trios bout, and Joe gets a Dralistico into the Coquina clutch for the win. Then after the match, well, we sort of talked about it a little bit at first. LFI go after the Ops, and Roosh spits on Hangman Page, and that gives Hangman the motivation to get into the ring, to get into the ring and clean house for help the Ops out, even though he is at war with Samoa Joe. And Joe shoves the World Championship into Hangman's chest. Again, in callback to what happened in their tag team match a couple of weeks ago. All right. Then we have the Death Riders, the Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta match versus Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly. Yeah, this was all right. This again, like, just matches happening, not bad matches, but nothing that makes you jump out of your seat, and it's fine. It's just fine. Talked about the post-match a little earlier. Then we get a promo segment between Megan Bayne and FTR. Stoke is there as well. We get Megan Bayne cutting a promo. I thought she did a decent job. I think she's pretty good. I think from the previous promos that we've heard from her, there's been a noticeable improvement. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, she's not Dwayne The Rock Johnson by any means, but she can. This wasn't bad. I thought she had a good, focused, intense promo. Then Stokely makes fun of Jet Speed, calling Mike Bailey Billy Ray Cyrus with an anti-immune deficiency, which I thought was pretty funny. Willow Nightingale also, gets some jokes pointed at her as well. Dax gets on the microphone. He really does light up the crowd. Like, he's very good at this. Really re-inject some energy into the crowd. And then Nightingale, Jet Speed, and Harley Cameron all interrupt from the Tron. And then they make their way to ringside where everyone brawls. And that leads right into Megan Bayne defeating Harley Cameron in his scheduled match. I thought Megan Bayne looked very good here as well. Match was fine. Again, nothing to write home about. It was just fine. Bayne wins with a running Liger bomb, which actually does look tremendous. She should keep that as her finisher. Eddie Kingston and Hook cut a promo backstage. I don't know if Hook could not remember that the pay-per-view was this weekend, or if it was a bit. I really don't know. But this was very, 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 a lot of nothing. That's what this was. It was a lot of nothing. And I think they kind of flubbed Eddie Kingston's return. I think in retrospect, they really fucked this one up. I think in an environment right now where the crowd needs to see its favorites, it needs its top people, I think Eddie would have been an easy shoe-in. And they're not using Eddie how Eddie should be used, who basically is, I'm going to go to the ring and I'm going to cut an unhinged promo where people will not know if I'm being legitimate or if I'm working. That's how you should use Eddie Kingston. You get another backstage promo, this time with the Acclaimed, continuing their will they, won't they, that will absolutely lead to a will they, and also yuck. And then the main event where Brodito defeated Brodito and Mark Briscoe, I should say, defeated the trio of Kyle Fletcher, Lance Archer, and Rocky Romero. It's a fine match. Again, it's like, I don't know, just good stuff. And that's pretty much it. Brodito get the win with a knee-assisted pile driver on Rocky. And after the match, Fletcher and Briscoe, they walk and brawl to the back. And then Brody King attacks, Kazuchika Okada attacks Brody King with one of his belts. And Okada and Callis stand tall, holding the tag team title belts. Obviously, because Konosuke Takeshita was not there because he didn't show up all evening. Probably still in Japan. And there you go. Yeah, that was a Dynamite. That was a Dynamite that happened on the eve of WrestleDream. Yeah, look, I thought, there's no question in my mind that the Moxley Darby stuff was the highlight of the show. Everything else just kind of happened and, kind of made me wonder, well, what exactly are we doing here? What exactly is the plan? I don't know. Look, WrestleDream's going to come up this weekend. Never bet against an AEW pay-per-view. This will likely be another very good show. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just not into it, if that makes sense. So, hopefully you were a little more into this review, which is going to wrap up now. Thank you all very much for watching. If you haven't already, leave a like on this video on YouTube or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. If you are around tonight and I have taken my medication properly, tonight being Thursday, I will be streaming later on here on the YouTube channel if you'd like to join me. That would be tremendous. We are going to do a full preview of the pay-per-view this weekend tonight on stream. So there you go. Thank you all once again for joining me. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me, and I will see you next time.